When people think of the Mafia in New York City, most of us immediately picture white, organized crime syndicates, vividly portrayed in blockbuster films like The Godfather, Gangs of New York, and The Warrior's Path. But few know that deep within the same city once raged a brutal underground war between Asian gangs, led predominantly by Chinese criminal organizations. It was so violent and grotesque that locals dubbed it the Bloody Corner, and even the New York Times was stunned when investigating the crime scene. So how did the Chinese manage to dominate a foreign underworld? And what exactly were they fighting over? Welcome to the chilling case of Raymond "Shrimp Boy" Chow, a man who rose from being an overlooked street thug to becoming the self-proclaimed kingpin of Chinese-American organized crime. This is ADB Crime Case. As always, before diving into the full story, please consider hitting the like button to support ADB Crime Case. Don't forget to subscribe to get notified about our latest investigations. Now let's begin. San Francisco's Chinatown has long been the birthplace of some of the most notorious Asian gangs in America, like the Hua Ching and the Joe Boys. But beyond those infamous names, there was another equally dangerous group that deserves attention. The Hop Sing Tong and their street-level enforcers known as the Hop Sing Boys. The influence of the Hop Sing Tong once extended far beyond San Francisco's Chinatown. They evolved into a global criminal network, with connections to triad societies both domestically and abroad. Their notoriety peaked thanks to the criminal operations of their top leader, Raymond "Shrimp Boy" Chow. In today's episode, we'll trace the full history of Hop Sing, from its roots to its eventual collapse in recent years. The origins of the Hop Sing crime group stem from its parent organization, the Hop Sing Tong. Historically, many violent turf wars erupted among various groups fighting for control over San Francisco's Chinatown. Among them, Hop Sing Tong was one of the oldest and most powerful. It was founded in the 1800s with the original mission of protecting Chinese immigrant workers from racial discrimination and abuse. San Francisco was the first U.S. home for Chinese immigrants, and thus the original base for the Tong. However, rather than sticking to legitimate business practices, some Tong members soon delved into illegal activities like smuggling contraband, running prostitution rings, and operating underground gambling dens. From the mid-1800s to the 19th century, a series of bloody internal conflicts broke out, known as the Tong Wars. Eventually, however, a period of relative peace was established, and violence waned, allowing Chinatown to stabilize for a time. But tensions reignited in the late 1960s after the U.S. passed the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965, opening the door to a new wave of Chinese immigrants from Hong Kong and Taiwan. This triggered a new cultural conflict, effectively a civil war, between the older generation of Chinese Americans and the freshly arrived immigrants, often referred to as FOBs, fresh off the boat. The FOBs felt discriminated against, not only by white Americans, but also by the established Chinese American community. And many of them came from regions with rich histories of organized crime and deep connections to the Triads. So it wasn't long before these newcomers began forming their own street gangs to assert power. The first major gang formed by these immigrants was Hua Ching. Around the same time, older Tong members began losing interest in street-level violence. Instead, they saw the potential to use these new gangs as enforcers, tools for protection and control. The Tong provided protection for illegal activities, and Hua Qing became a key partner, helping secure underground casinos operated by the Hop Sing Tong. In the early 1970s, yet another gang emerged in San Francisco's Chinatown. This group specialized in petty thefts, extortion, and, most lucratively, selling fireworks. At the time, fireworks were a hot commodity, especially during Chinese New Year and cultural festivals, making the trade highly profitable. Gangs like Hua Qing, the Joe Boys, and Hop Sing dominated this market. But everything began to shift in the late 70s, with the arrival of a teenager named Raymond Chow, better known as Shrimp Boy. Born in 1959 in Hong Kong, Chow immigrated to the U.S. at age 17. His nickname, Shrimp Boy, or Ha Jai in Cantonese, was affectionately given by his grandmother due to his short stature. Despite his small frame, Chow quickly gained a reputation for being fearless, scrappy, and ruthless. Chow claimed he was once affiliated with the Triads back in Hong Kong, and even boasted that his first violent act, drawing blood, happened when he was just 9 years old. Upon arriving in San Francisco, Chow hoped to revive his gangster lifestyle on new turf. But he was immediately thrown into a brutal struggle for survival amid the gang rivalries already brewing in Chinatown, primarily between Hua Qing and the Joe Boys. For several years, he had to fight tooth and nail to gain respect. The tension among these rival groups reached a terrifying climax on September 4, 1977. That night, members of Hop Sing and their allies from Hua Qing were having dinner at the Golden Dragon restaurant in San Francisco's Chinatown. Around 2:40 a.m., a squad from the Joe Boys stormed in and opened fire, creating chaos. None of the gang members were killed, but the attack left 5 innocent people dead and 11 others injured. The tragedy became infamously known as the Golden Dragon Massacre. The massacre shocked the entire country. Law enforcement launched an intensive investigation into the Asian underworld of San Francisco. For the first time, Asian street gangs were firmly on the radar of the U.S. government. As a result, the Joe Boys were dismantled, unintentionally giving Hua Qing and Hop Sing a major advantage. With their rival eliminated, they rose to become the dominant criminal forces in Chinatown. But Raymond Shrimp Boy Chow wasn't about to stop there. He continued to build his street reputation through a series of escalating crimes, violent brawls, indiscriminate shootings, robberies, and more. Eventually, he formed his own crew and expanded into extortion, illegal gambling, prostitution, and elaborate scams. During this time, Chow and other Hop Sing members orchestrated a brutal attack on a group they wrongly believed was operating an unauthorized gambling den on their turf. Although they later realized their mistake, Chow pressed forward with a robbery anyway, ignoring the facts. The law finally caught up with him. In 1978, Chow was arrested and sentenced to 11 years in prison. While behind bars, he didn't waste time. Chow trained in martial arts and used his time in prison to network and gain influence, preparing for a bigger, more professional return to the criminal underworld. Meanwhile, Hop Sing's stronghold in San Francisco began to crumble. Hua Qing, under the command of a rising leader named Danny Wong, had gained control of Chinatown. Many Hop Sing members relocated to nearby Oakland, seeking refuge and a chance to regroup. When Chow was released in 1985, he was determined to take back Chinatown. Danny Wong, now a dominant force, attempted to make peace by offering Chow an alliance, but Chow rejected it outright. Instead, Chow reconnected with former associates in Oakland and quickly climbed the ranks of Hop Sing once again. This time, he reached the top, becoming the gang's de facto leader. With his newfound authority, Chow began consolidating power. He bullied smaller gangs, took over legitimate and illegitimate enterprises alike, and made it clear. He wasn't just another gangster, he was a major player. But his reign was short-lived. In 1986, only a year after his release, Chow got into a violent fight with Hua Qing members. He was arrested again and sentenced to 3 more years, serving time until 1989. At this point, it looked like Chow's criminal career was hitting a dead end. Hua Qing still ruled Chinatown, and Chow kept ending up behind bars. But fate had other plans. In prison, Chow met Peter Chong, a triad heavyweight from Hong Kong. This meeting would alter the course of Asian organized crime in America forever. Peter Chong was no ordinary gangster. He was a high-ranking member of the notorious Wo Hop to Triad in Hong Kong. Due to increasing crackdowns by Chinese authorities, Chong had been dispatched to California with a mission: expand Wo Hop 2's criminal empire across the United States. To achieve this, he needed a local, someone who knew the lay of the land, the politics of the street, and the unspoken rules of San Francisco's Chinatown. Raymond "Shrimp Boy" Chow was the perfect candidate. Chong and Chow struck a deal. With Peter Chong's backing, Chow was elevated to second-in-command of Wo Hop 2's American operations. In return, Chow brought his Hop Sing crew under the Triad's umbrella. Chong even introduced Chow to the top dog of Wo Hop 2 in Hong Kong, Chan Ting Hung, better known as Crazy Thai. With powerful allies and international resources, Chow focused on rebuilding Hop Sing's dominance in San Francisco. He founded the Hop Sing community, recruiting young men, many from Oakland, into the gang. Backed by a mix of loyal veterans and fresh blood, Chow made it his mission to crush Hua Qing and reclaim control of Chinatown. The plan was ambitious: unite all Asian gangs on the West Coast under the protection of Wo Hop 2. Chow and Chong issued an ultimatum to rival groups: join us or die. Their campaign was brutal but effective. Smaller gangs like Sui Sing and the Jackson Street Boys were defeated and absorbed. Some groups surrendered voluntarily, hoping to avoid bloodshed. By the early 1990s, Wo Hop 2, under Chow's street leadership, controlled nearly every Asian gang in San Francisco's Chinatown. Every gang except one: Hua Qing, still led by Danny Wong. Chow repeatedly reached out to Wong, urging him to join the coalition, but Wong refused each time. And then, in April 1990, Danny Wong was shot and killed. His murder sent shockwaves through the underworld. Hua Qing, now leaderless, fractured. Some fled to Los Angeles. The rest surrendered, folding into Wo Hop 2 exactly as Chow had envisioned. With that, Chow and Peter Chong completed their hostile takeover of the Asian underworld in San Francisco. They had built an empire stretching along the entire West Coast, unified, profitable, and soaked in blood. With San Francisco conquered, Chow and Peter Chong turned their eyes eastward. Peter Chong wasn't satisfied with just dominating the West Coast. He dreamed of expanding Wo Hip To's power to the East Coast, linking up with Chinese criminal syndicates in New York and Boston to form a nationwide network. Their first target, the Onliang Tong in Boston, a powerful and well-established Chinese organization. Chong convinced its leader, Wayne Kwong, to join Wo Hop 2 without firing a single bullet, but they didn't stop there. Next on the hit list was Boston's most feared Chinese street gang, Ping On, led by the legendary gangster Bike Ming. Although Ping On had close ties to the Onliang Tong, Bike Ming refused to join Wo Hop 2. That refusal sealed his fate. Chong and Kwong reportedly conspired to eliminate him. Kwong requested that Wo Hop 2 send a hit squad to assassinate Bike Ming. But the plan backfired. Police were already monitoring the area, and the attempt failed. At the same time, Peter Chong ordered a bizarre mission in San Francisco. He wanted his own house on Lincoln Avenue burned down. The arsonists? None other than Cheol Soo Lee, a Korean-American who had become something of a folk hero after being wrongfully convicted of murder in 1973. His case had sparked outrage and massive protests from Asian American communities across the country. Now, he was part of the Hop Sing gang and working for Peter Chong. Lee carried out the firebombing with another gang member, Andy Lee. But it went horribly wrong. Both men suffered severe burns. Andy Lee, trying to save Cheol Soo Lee, was burned over 90% of his body. They barely survived, spending a month in comas. The exact motive behind the arson remains unclear. Most believe it was a scheme to collect insurance money and secure a relocation. Not long after the failed arson attempt, the empire began to crumble. Peter Chong was arrested on gambling charges and subpoenaed to testify before a federal grand jury on Asian organized crime. Around the same time, Wayne Kwong and Raymond Shrimp Boy Chow tried to orchestrate a major heroin smuggling deal in Atlantic City, New Jersey. But things didn't go as planned. In May 1992, both were arrested. Chow immediately suspected there was a snitch among them. He singled out a female associate and accused her of being the informant. He ordered that she be beaten, not once, but twice. Ironically, she wasn't the snitch, at least not at first. But after the repeated beatings, she flipped. The brutality pushed her straight into the arms of law enforcement. Her testimony led to a massive crackdown. In October 1993, Chow and the Hop Sing gang were indicted. The charges included 48 counts and named 19 ringleaders and key enforcers in an Asian organized crime network that stretched from Hong Kong to the San Francisco Bay Area to Boston. This was historic. For the first time, the U.S. government used the RICO Act, a law designed to combat organized crime, against Asian gangs on the West Coast. Peter Chong fled the country. Chow wasn't so lucky. He stood trial in two separate proceedings. The first trial focused on illegal arms trafficking. The second dealt with fraud and conspiracy. To save himself, Chow's former associate Wayne Kwong turned on him and testified for the prosecution in exchange for a lighter sentence. In 1996, Raymond Chow was convicted and sentenced to 23 years in prison. With Chow behind bars, Hop Sing and its affiliated Tongs lost much of their power. The once dominant Wo Hop to syndicate in America fell apart. Peter Chong, after years on the run, was eventually captured and extradited back to the U.S. in 2000. Initially, Chow refused to testify against Chong. But after discovering that Chong had secretly hired a defense attorney for himself during the 1996 trial, without offering Chow any help, Chow felt betrayed. He flipped. Chow agreed to testify against the very man who once made him a kingpin, Raymond Shrimp Boy. Chow wasn't the only one to flip. Cheol Su Lee and other former Hop Sing members also agreed to testify against Peter Chong. The result? Chong was convicted on multiple charges: fraud, attempted murder, extortion, arson, and sentenced to 15 years in prison. As part of the deal for turning state witness, Chow was released early in 2003. When he returned to the public eye, Chow insisted he had changed. He began appearing at community events, speaking at youth programs, and preaching the dangers of gang life. To many, he seemed like a reformed man, an example of redemption. But beneath that polished exterior, Chow had unfinished business. Quietly, he began working his way back into the criminal world. His new target? Regaining control of the Hop Sing Tong and another group known as Gie Kung Tong, both of which were now officially managed by a respected community figure named Alan Leung. Leung grew suspicious. He contacted federal authorities, warning them that Chow was attempting to extort him. But the FBI found no hard evidence. Fearful for his life, Leung grew increasingly paranoid. Then, in 2006, Alan Leung was gunned down in front of his wife. Though Chow attended the funeral, many believed he was behind the killing. 10 months later, he was arrested and brought to trial, but walked free due to lack of evidence. Shortly after, Chow took over leadership of Gie Kung Tong, solidifying his power and resuming his role as a criminal overlord, this time under the public disguise of a community leader. Craving more influence and legitimacy, Chow started appearing in TV programs such as Gangland on National Geographic. He used his official position within Hop Sing Tong to build relationships with celebrities, politicians, and key figures in the Chinese-American community. By 2010, he was forging alliances that blurred the lines between crime and politics. One of those alliances was with California State Senator Leland. Together, Chow and Yi allegedly operated a money laundering and illegal arms trafficking ring. Their goal: power and profit. But as Chow prepared to run for official leadership of Hop Sing Tong, he encountered an obstacle: an ambitious rival named Jim Tat Kong. Rumors began to swirl around Jim Tat Kong that he had slept with the wife of another Tong member, and that he was threatening others to vote for him instead of Raymond Chow in the upcoming leadership election. One by one, Chow's rivals began to disappear. Then, on October 17, 2013, both Jim Tat Kong and his wife were murdered. The incident sent shockwaves through the Chinese-American community and confirmed what many had already suspected. Chow was back, and more dangerous than ever. At the same time, Chow's relationship with a longtime associate began to unravel. Andy Lee, once a loyal ally, started to pull away. The tension came to a head at a nightclub meeting. Chow demanded Lee carry out an attack on another Hop Sing member. Lee refused. He told Chow he was tired of the drug lifestyle. He wanted to be famous, for the right reasons, and live in peace. The two men argued, and it escalated into a physical fight. Chow ended up bleeding on the nightclub floor, but that wasn't the real damage. The real fallout came later, when Lee, angry and disillusioned, began cooperating with the authorities. After years of surveillance and infiltration, the FBI was finally ready to move. On March 26, 2014, federal agents launched a sweeping raid across the San Francisco Bay Area, Chinatown, San Mateo, Sacramento, and dozens of other locations. Raymond Chow and Senator Leland were both arrested in one of the most high-profile joint criminal political takedowns in California history. The arrests shocked the public. The FBI seized computers, reviewed financial records, and uncovered a web of illegal activities: fraud, bribery, money laundering, and an international gun smuggling operation. A respected politician and a notorious crime boss, both brought down in the same case. On July 1, 2015, California State Senator Leland pleaded guilty to racketeering and corruption. He was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. Raymond "Shrimp Boy" Chow's trial began in November 2015. He faced charges for the murders of Alan Leung and Jim Tat Kong, as well as money laundering, theft, conspiracy, and other racketeering crimes. One of the key witnesses, his former friend and enforcer, Andy Lee. At first, Lee had planned to testify in Chow's favor, but after reading through FBI transcripts and evidence, he realized the truth. Chow had betrayed him. Lee's testimony, along with evidence gathered over years of investigation, was damning. Witness after witness painted a clear picture of Chow's duplicity, his fake public persona as a reformed man, hiding his ruthless criminal empire. On August 4, 2016, Raymond Chow was convicted on all counts. The man who once ruled Chinatown from the shadows, the gangster turned community leader turned gangster again, was sentenced to 2 life sentences without the possibility of parole. To this day, he remains behind bars. Since his downfall and the arrests of numerous Hop Sing and Wo Hop to members, San Francisco's Chinatown has enjoyed a relative peace. It's unclear whether the Hop Sing street gang still operates in the shadows, but officially, the Hop Sing Tong is now considered a legitimate organization. As for other Asian gangs in California, they still exist, but none have come close to the scale, brutality, or influence of the empire once built by Shrimp Boy Chow. And that brings our deep dive story to a close. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching and supporting ADB Crime Case. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more chilling true crime stories. Until next time, stay safe and stay curious.